Welcome to the first episode of the GoneAForeign podcast. I'm your host, Nazim Zeke, and I am pleased to welcome my first guest. She is a British Nigerian who has done many travel tours throughout Europe and West Africa, and currently has a YouTube channel teaching people how to safely and properly travel around the West African region. I am pleased to welcome Bim, also known as the Careful Wanderer.
Hi.
Morning, Bim. Or good afternoon, I should say.
Hi, afternoon, and good morning to you. Thanks, Nazim, for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How was it? How did your family decide to migrate from Nigeria to London?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one. So on my dad's side, my dad moved to the UK in his 20s after he married my mum and sometime after my sister was born. So on that side, I'm like first generation, but my mum, her family have been in the UK for a long time. So on my mum's side, all my uncles, cousins and everything, they all live here, born here and everything. My mum moved when she was a really small girl, but she lived most of her life in the UK. So it's depending which direction I'm coming from.
Oh, wow. That's good. It's kind of like having the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I find, I guess for me, growing up as a first generation American, a lot of what my parents were figuring out for the first time was the same time I was going through things, whether it's like where we lived or going through the school system. Like they were just as new to everything as I was.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you don't think about until you're older, how we're all just kind of just stumbling through this. But that's cool. So growing up in London, when was like the first time you realized you might have been different from your peers or everyone around you?
That's good. That was bringing back memories. I think I remember in primary school, we'll go to school and there was none at all, but there weren't that many other black kids. And I remember begging my mum when she used to cane roll my hair and use extensions to cane roll my hair. I would ask her to which I guess nowadays we'll consider it crochet, but I didn't understand that to let the attachments hang loose so my hair would be wavy like the other girls.
Like a little straighter almost.
I remember begging her to that. Obviously my mom just like, and she would do her thing, just ignored me. That's one of the things, like to start with my hair didn't look like the other girls in class. It just could, I think for me it was when I started getting bullied. I think the first time I heard the N-word was in middle school. And I didn't even know what it was because it's not something that my family used, or we never said that at home. And a friend of mine kind of educated me as to what it meant. But I think that for me, when I started getting bullied and people started calling me, it's like, oh, it's because you're and I'm like, I'm a what? And then I didn't even know what it meant. So I kind of had to figure out what they were calling me in order to get offended properly. So considering all, say, like the social movements and the Black Lives Matter protests that has been going on in 2020 in the United States, how have you seen that effect in London and the ripple effect of what's been transpiring in America? I think the first, for us growing up in the UK, we feel a connection to an African American culture in a way, largely because a lot of the movies, TV shows back in the day, they all come from you, and that's how we saw ourselves being represented. So there's always been a kind of affinity in a weird way. So when the protests started happening, people went out here as well. Groups started to get together and organize, and we have a Black Lives Matter, a chapter or something.
Yeah, I saw that they toppled a statue.
They started knocking down the statues and things like that of people who had been involved in any form or shape with slavery in the past. in Britain.
So how would you describe, I guess, racism in London? I wouldn't say compared to the United States, but it comes in different forms. I'll speak on my experience. I feel like in the United States, people are very, very overt. Even like as we're recording this, white supremacists are having a march to protest who knows what. And it's very overt. People come guns blazing. The cops are very hostile. How would you describe the type of racism that you see in London? Because I understand that there is a difference.
Yes, I think for most European countries, the way white supremacy works in societies is it's very under the surface. I think I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but it's the antagonistic, in your face, brutal kind of thing that is very rare. You see that here. It's very rare people experience that here. So most Black people, I'll be honest, can pretty much go through their lives and maybe have one or two incidences, or maybe there's a specific workplace while they work there, they have that. But most people, they don't have these very hostile, racist encounters. Is quite rare because of the way the society here works and just how things are just very different. But I think most people do get to a point when they hit the wall. And it's usually when you start understanding, for example, in the UK, who are the people that make the rules? Who are the people that make the money? And you start realizing people like you, people from your community, are just not in those spaces.
Yeah, representation.
We're not there.
I think that's a big thing here. Even when we start to get some representation here, they always face a lot of backlash and a lot of scrutiny that's not necessarily warranted, and it makes you question. It's like, oh, this doesn't really make sense. A lot of the scrutiny, say like maybe like Barack, for example, would face is very hypocritical. And even now, I feel like with the current regime going out, it's a lot of people are really showing their faces and showing their necks as to like who they really are. It's less, it might have been more covert in 2010 than it is ever able to be in 2020. And I find that there's no going back from that. I guess with that being said, considering how bad the Black experience is in the United States, that's always what led me to travel. Growing up in Jamaica and in the United States, going back and forth, I realized there's a huge contrast in the way people treated me. What led you to start traveling and ultimately come up with the Careful Wanderer?
I think for the Careful Wanderer was kind of like a personal journey. I realized after my dad passed away that I didn't have a connection to my Nigerian identity. My dad was a very proud Yoruba man, and for some reason, I never had that connection. I also can't speak the language, unfortunately. So when he died, I think that it struck me that I haven't connected myself enough to home to even pass something on to my children. Now my dad's passed away. And that kind of led me on to think, okay, what does it mean to be African, not born in Africa? What does that mean now? And that kind of took me down the journey. Eventually I said, okay, I want to go back. I want to travel. I want to see it for myself. And then I started planning my trip, which ended up being bigger and larger than
and turning into the Careful Wanderer. That's beautiful. I find as a first generation American, you're first generation British, I've had a similar type of, because as you can hear me talk, I don't necessarily have the strongest accent in the world. So I have felt that lack of connection to my culture and my people as to why I decided to move back to Jamaica, or move to Jamaica in the first place.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what was going on for you that led to that decision?
So what was going on for me, after I graduated college and I got my first job, it was a real social shock, because prior to that I was in my bubble. I ran track and field. I went to a university where I hung out with most of my track team. Most of them were Black, while my coaches were Black. So then same for in high school. And when I got to the real world and started working in corporate America, I struggled a lot. And it was probably one of the most difficult things I ever did, trying to assimilate into that corporate culture. And I really ended up on the short end of the stick a lot of the time. And I didn't necessarily understand what was going on. When people would make jokes and I wouldn't laugh, or people would say, hey, let's grab coffee, let's do something. And then I reach out to them and they're like, oh, I didn't actually want to grab coffee. I was just being polite. And I get confused. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll just go back to my desk now. But it's just the constant microaggressions, and on top of the overt situations, like every time I get pulled over, I'd have a gun pulled on me. I remember one time I got pulled over in a gas station, and a gun got pulled on me in front of my aunt, and I was even more scared that she had to see it happen.
Yeah.
Less about what would happen to me, but the fact that she would have to watch me potentially become a hashtag, essentially. And I think a lot of people don't realize how close to home this is. And again, it's hearing about like my father's struggle when he came to America, and going through what I go through. I think to myself, it doesn't have to be this hard. I'm like, there's no way life's got to be this hard. So that's what led me to start traveling more. And again, I did my first tour in Southeast Asia. And that, again, when I met people might have been curious. They might have greeted me with stares, but it was never like a scary type of situation. Never did I ever feel as unsafe as I ever have back at home. So with that, I kind of fell in love with traveling just to kind of take a break from the constant pressure in the United States. And then fast forward 2019, I went to Central America, and I felt a lot of the same. People were just so nice to me everywhere I went. It just begged the question. I'm like, there's got to be a better way of life than in the United States. And I guess what I want to do with the channel is hopefully shed light on ways of life outside the United States. But I think for me, and especially with all that has been going on in 2020, Jamaica was calling me. This is where I need to be. I wanted to be with my family, and I wanted to, again, set my roots here, because I know once my parents get old and they pass, I don't necessarily have any connections here on the island. I have my cousins and my aunts and uncles and my grandmother that I'm close to, but aside from that, I don't have any connections that are mine. So I wanted to come here and set my roots and just kind of establish myself. So going forward, I do have something to pass along to my kids, so my kids won't when they say they're Jamaican, they know where they come from. They can point to the street, the road, the parish, the town, and all of that, and be able to go back and see where, I guess, I don't want to say where it all started, because it all started in Africa, but I think we're getting there. So I guess with that being said, that's what led me on my travel journey. But so tell me about traveling in West Africa. That is a dream trip of mine. I think going to Ghana and necessarily going to the point of no return. There's a monument in Black River, Jamaica, where my dad's side of the family is from, where a slave port is, where they brought the slaves in from Ghana and the point of no return. So it's always been a dream of mine to retrace that route and go back to Ghana, to the point of no return, as a very it'd be symbolic for me, because obviously it's the point of no return, but here I am 4 or 5 generations later, we're coming back in better than before type of thing. So tell me about some of the attractions in West Africa. I don't know many, which is unfortunate, but educate me, please. Tell me.
Yeah, sure. I got my list. I got my
Yes.
list. So you mentioned the point of no return in Ghana, which is Cape Coast Castle, and there's also Alima Castle as well. People usually you can do an overnight trip from the capital city, from Accra, and go there, spend the night, and visit both places. That's one of the biggest attractions for Ghana, amongst other things. There's others as well. Senegal is the Pink Lake. So because of there's a lake in Senegal, because of the microorganisms in the lake, it actually at certain points of the year you can actually looks pink.
Oh wow!
Pink, yeah, and
That's
they harvest
beautiful.
salt from there, and they use salt. They often ship it out, export it to other countries, especially countries that need the salt for the roads when it snows. They export a lot to Europe and things like that. But it's beautiful. You can also
Can you swim in this lake?
ride on. Sorry.
Can you swim in this lake?
You can. People, when I went, I didn't. It was not that adventurous. I didn't. But people say that you do, because the lake's so salty that it's really good for the skin.
Yeah, it's probably really buoyant. You probably just float a little bit, stay at the top.
Pretty much. So that's another great stopping point. Another place is the Gambia River. It's a great place, like you go on a boat trip upstream, I think it's upstream. And the thing with the Gambia, even though it's a really narrow country, and it's in both, like along the banks of the river that runs through it, there's many different ecosystems there. So you have the wetlands, you have the mangroves, you have the riverine systems, and there's so many different types of birds and so many different types of birds there.
Wildlife and
about 500 species of birds.
Oh wow!
Something like that.
That's
Yeah,
a lot of birds.
It's pretty amazing. So a lot of tourists, they will go there to cruise on the river. You can travel up. They have some luxurious lodges as well where you can stay overnight, and while you're doing your trip. And there's some ancient signs as well. There's a ring of stones, which is a name I forget, that you can also do, as well as Kunta Kinte Island. That was one of the places the slave stops on their way to America. So that's all along the river, the Gambian River.
And you mentioned these luxury lodges. So what are accommodations like? Do you stay in hostels? Would you stay in hotels? Homestays, couch surfing? How would you go about accommodations when traveling through West Africa?
Yeah, it's a good question. It really depends on you and your style of travel. You have the 5-star hotels, which like the chains that are known all over, like the Hiltons,
Marriott's and
things that's like my brain just went. Things like that they have in the big cities. If you want luxury hotels, usually you only find them in the big cities. So you're thinking Dakar, Banjul, Lagos, Abuja, Accra. So mainly in the big cities.
So what about the budget? The budget method?
Yeah. Budget. If you want to travel, there are hostels. I know Ghana and Senegal have really good ones. Really good ones that you can stay in. Usually as well, Airbnb. So where I stayed a lot of the times was you're in it like a shared accommodation. So it's not a hostel. So you have your own room, but you share the kitchen, you share the bathroom, you share the living room. So those, I don't know what it'd be in dollars, but usually those would be like 15 pounds a night. That's kind of the budget option.
I'll probably convert it and then add it on the screen for those of us watching on YouTube.
So budget means no aircon, so it's a fan and your bed.
Yeah, which isn't bad. That's I'm kind of used to it because that's how I stay most of the time when I'm in Jamaica. I think from an American standard that might take a little bit getting used to, but it's all part of the experience, I believe.
Yeah.
So I guess those are accommodations. So I guess my next question would be, how would you get around? What would the path be, say, if you wanted to start in Ghana and then move east? How would you get from country to country?
So there are three actually main ways you can fly. You can fly from country to country, but because of the infrastructure, hotels and flights are really expensive in West Africa. So if your budget was under that, the other way would be to go by coach. So a lot of companies, it may have changed a bit with COVID, because I know a lot of countries have their own rules at the border, but before you can get on an air conditioner coach like ABC Transport in Ghana, and that will take you to Ivory Coast, that will take you to Togo, that will take you to Benin, that will take you to Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
And so the big coaches, they travel. And if you want even a more cheaper option, will be the shared taxis, and they'll take you from point to point and you go along your journey. They're not the most comfortable, to be honest.
Yeah, and they put like 5 people in the back.
Most people, I would not start there.
Have someone else's child sitting on your lap.
Yeah, pretty much. And the chickens and the goats and everything.
Yeah, the chickens and the goats.
That's like, how it
goes. That's the authentic experience right there. Yeah. So there's always, when I travel, there's always I guess comfortability levels when it comes to it. Like you have the super local transport, and then you have like the luxury private type of ride where it's just maybe like you and a taxi driver or a coach, or if you're flying. So I guess for me, I usually vary depending on my comfortability at the time and in the area. But yeah, it's definitely a range. You have options when it comes to transportation. And I think this might be the biggest question of them all is safety. I know I guess with a lot of misinformation, and I guess safety is always a concern, especially now more than ever. So talk to me a little bit how you would travel through West Africa safely.
I first and foremost have travel insurance, because, and it is not specific because of West Africa, things happen when you travel, and the last thing you want to be is stranded without any help. If anything happens medically or your flights or accommodation or anything, do get travel insurance. The second thing as well is I think the first part for safety for me is mindset. So I would encourage anyone who's considering going to follow travel bloggers, lifestyle bloggers, and foodies who live, work, and operate in West Africa, and follow them, because they'll give you insight into the life there. So it will prepare you for what it will be like, but also let you understand people are living, they're raising their kids, they have their jobs, they're doing what they're going about from place to place. And the unfortunate things that do happen, like, for example, recently heard about the protests and how they've gone down in Nigeria by the NSAS protests, and that's just horrible and tragic and very upsetting. But if that's all you hear, if those are the news stories you always hear, you do need to get a kind of balance. So I'll encourage you to follow people who are there and live there. And
yes, I always implore people to do their own research. It's like, we can give you our tools, but we're just two people at the end of the day. Hopefully this is a kickstart for anyone who is aspiring to travel through West Africa, but definitely I implore everyone to go out there, do their own research. For me, like YouTube and Instagram, you can see on go to a location, look at an Instagram story, and see what's happening there today in the last 24 hours, opposed to maybe reading a book that's 10 years old. Go on YouTube, see the most recent videos and YouTubers, see what's happening right now, and get up to date, more unfiltered knowledge than something you might necessarily see on TV. Yeah, so I guess from an American perspective, we would need visas to travel through West Africa. Can you tell me how to go about obtaining a visa, and like what countries can you travel in Africa without a visa?
Yes, so within the West African region, the 4 countries that American citizens don't need a visa for are Senegal. You can stay there for, I think it's 90 days. Senegal, Gambia, and Cape Verde. I think it's 90 days. You don't need a visa to travel. And then the last one is Sao Tome and Principe. It's an island off the coast of West Africa. You can stay there up to 15 days without a visa.
Very beautiful island. After you mentioned it on our planning call, I did a little research, and I was like, that's somewhere I need to go.
Yeah, it's
strong culture, very still very indigenous, and yeah, definitely something that should be checked out.
Yeah. Otherwise, most other countries you can. Ghana and Nigeria, from what I understand, you will need to get your visas in advance. Cote d'Ivoire, you can purchase your e-visa online, and then when you get to the airport or to the land border, you would process your visa, but you buy that beforehand. Other countries, usually you have to go to the embassy and get your visa beforehand. Sometimes I know Togo, you get 7 days on arrival. You have to pay the fee once you get to the border or you get into the airport. But it varies. So you either go to the embassy in the States, get your visa there, or when you get to the border, you can pay. But usually the ones you get at the border or ones you get at the airport, they're usually very short. They're not that long, like 7 days.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, I always find that it's best practice to try to do your research, see what countries you need visas, and get them ahead of time. Because sometimes it can be not a quick turnaround for visas and approval, but very doable. Again, it's one of those things you got to think about ahead of time. So tell me about some of your travels. I think a large misconception in America, or a large fear in America, is traveling alone, especially as a woman. I know I can't necessarily speak on that experience. I never have issues when I travel by myself. I almost prefer it because I don't necessarily have to worry about anyone, or I can make my own itinerary, go at my own pace, stop at shops. But tell me your experiences solo traveling as a Black woman in some of your favorite places that you've been to.
Yeah, of course. I think for me, I'm more introverted by nature. So similar to what you're saying, there's a kind of relief, not when you're not with a group, although I travel with group, I've traveled with family before. So with solo travel, I think be conscious of your surroundings, be aware of your surroundings, and not in a fear, like terrified, like paranoid kind of way, but just being in tune. If you're in a place and you don't feel comfortable, don't worry what anyone says or anyone looks at you. Walk away, go somewhere else. I think that's definitely a thing traveling solo to learn to do. Another thing is probably with the safety as well is I always give my family my itinerary, so they know the hotels I'm staying in, they know my flights. I create a pack for them and email it to my sister, email it to my mom.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah,
better than me. Sometimes I remember one time sorry to interrupt. One time I broke my phone. I think I went 10 days without contacting someone from back home until I had gotten a new phone and a new SIM card. But yeah, that's good. That's definitely best practice to inform people as to where you are at all times. So tell me some of your other best practice when it comes to solo traveling.
I will just for contacting people, I will always get a SIM card at the airport of the country I'm about to go into and buy credit for the phone, so I can always call if I need to. Usually it's not necessary, and I mainly use it for the internet because it's cheaper than trying to do roaming. Yeah,
I find early in my travel days I didn't know that, so I would just solely rely on Wi-Fi and then just kind of wing it. But then I learned quickly that as soon as you get in the country, buy some data. Yeah. Even if it's just not a lot, but at least to get you to your hotel, so you can kind of get situated, find the bank, download your maps, get settled, and then you can recalibrate type of thing. But yeah, definitely buying some data at the airport. That is a major one for sure. And tell me about what some of your favorite destinations solo traveling.
Favorite, my West African trip, my two favorite places was Senegal. I loved Senegal so much. And the second place I really loved was Togo. Togo is infrastructure isn't the best when you compare it to places like Ghana and Nigeria and Senegal, but it's stunning, and you have so many waterfalls there. So Togo was my second favorite place.
I love waterfalls. And what was your favorite part about Senegal?
I just love being in the city. I love Dakar, and I know people might think like city life is busy and it's loud and there's traffic and things like that, but it's just Senegals have their own vibe. It's great. You just have to be there to experience it. It's just
absolutely.
Yeah, there's a chill. They're chill, but you know, their life happens and their food's amazing. Their fish, oh my gosh.
Tell me a little bit more about the food. Is when you go from country to country, how similar is it to, I guess, what you're accustomed to with Nigerian food? And tell me some of your favorite dishes, some must-haves.
Yeah, sure. I liked I'm probably not pronouncing it right. I'm not gonna try and pronounce it. The Senegalese jollof rice. It's similar. There's a version of that in most West African countries.
Yeah.
But the Senegalese ones, they do it with fish and they do it with vegetables. So it's packed with nutrition and good stuff.
Yes. That sounds
any
good.
type of fish in Senegal was great. Something I tried for the first time was cassava leaf stew. I tried that in Ivory Coast. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And something I sometimes I still get an urge, not the urge, what's the word?
Craving.
Yeah, I still get a craving. That was amazing. As well as in Ghana as well. Ghana was more similar to Nigeria because they have the stew with what they call swallow, where it's a carbohydrate ball, either can make it a yam, cassava, corn.
And is this different from like fufu or?
So yeah, they'll sometimes, but they can make from different different grains and things like that.
And I guess like starchy potatoes type of thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, food is definitely my favorite part about travel. I almost go to countries for their food. For me, like Thailand and Laos. I think Laos is the most surprising one for me because at that point when I was traveling, I was 3 weeks into my travel trip. I had already been to Cambodia, already been to Vietnam, already been to Thailand. So I got to Laos thinking I knew what to expect, and then come blown away. The food was nothing I expected it. It wasn't similar to any of their neighboring countries, and it was amazing. I think in Luang Prabang, which is the capital, I had like a 5-course meal, and it cost me, with 5 other people that I had met at the hostel, and it ran me maybe about like $7 or $8 just for the whole thing. And I was prepared to pay, like, in the United States that would have cost me around 50. And I was like, wow. They gave me a suggestion box at the end saying how they could make it better, and I was like, just raise the prices a little bit. This is very good. I was like, this is so good. But yeah, definitely the food is a treat. I find that, I guess with me, sometimes with foreign foods and foreign menus, you kind of you never know what to get. It can be overwhelming at times, but sometimes you just gotta pick something that sounds about right, even if you close your eyes and pick something off the menu, and then just see what you get and just try them all. So Bim, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. For anyone that wants to follow you and follow the Careful Wanderer, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at the Careful Wanderer. Otherwise, you can check out my website, sign up to my newsletter at www.thecarefulwanderer.com. Those are the best place to find me.
Awesome. Be sure to check Bim out. She's got some great tips when it comes to traveling West Africa, and I look forward to working with you in the future on planning my West African trip.
Great.
And you can catch the podcast on all streaming platforms. You can find me at GoneAForeign on Instagram and on YouTube. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Nazim. Bye.